Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Saturday, December 11th, 2021. In both the Lynn Life and the Jimmy Body Mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the many Search for Truth rules already given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us, and whether or not the souls are living by those rules, the host lives are still being held accountable for living by those rules, and it's incumbent upon us to have the discipline to live by those rules to the best of our abilities. And usually people use that little phrase as an out.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And that's not how we mean it, because we are aware that these are soul plans that have no out, that these two lives are part of 1,000,000 lives, and experiment on 1,000,000 lives to see if a certain soul plan, a very important soul plan, could work if it was engaged with in a different environment with different parameters. But the soul plan doesn't have an out. It says no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. So that's a no out clause. Therefore, we are sure that it is incumbent upon the lives, not just these two lives, but all those 1,000,000, and presumably much more than that, to continue to hold to the rules, even though the souls have disconnected from the lives. The souls who are living by those rules have disconnected, and not to be pointing fingers at the souls, because the astral currents have riptides, and astrals kind of have earthquakes also, where we think it's connected and then boom, it's not connected, and time disconnects. And so interdimensional work is very tricky.
That's true.
In this era of system breakdown, and yet we find ourselves still posted here in this dimension where nobody listens to us, and working interdimensionally in dimensions where nobody listens. And it's not listening to us because we're just channeling.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they're not listening to the voices who are channeling through here. And, ignore us. We don't care about that. But ignoring divinity when divinity is speaking, we think that's a bad plan. And now they're talking about Pope Clement V,
They are.
who was the Pope in a very difficult era, and he made choices that maybe with hindsight he would not have made, but he was in a difficult position, and mistakes happen.
It was a very, very rough time to be Pope.
Very rough time to be Pope. And we think that we were able to observe that guy, that's who we were observing through a dreaming experience.
That soul.
Pardon.
Thank you.
And he seemed to be a good guy.
Yeah.
And he seemed to have awareness of an industry, and he was advising people who definitely did not have the awareness that he had, and he was telling them to not pass on lies. What was the phrase?
Yeah.
Don't sell it. He says, don't sell it, or it becomes 100 times harder to get rid of it.
That's it.
And we think he was saying, don't sell lies from the pulpit.
Yeah.
Don't say something that you know isn't true to achieve an outcome, or it becomes 100 times to get rid of. And we think he means the karmic burden, the karmic responsibility.
That's the feeling.
So we think he was talking about the responsibility of the pulpit.
That's right.
Those who have a pulpit, whether literal or figurative, how important it is that they not misuse it for personal benefit, and how they really try to achieve whatever it is that their soul plan says they're supposed to achieve. And the soul plan is always with us. It's a constant from birth to death. we can pretend it's gone, but that doesn't make it go away. And when we die, this is inevitable. When we transition to a less dense dimension, we have, they're saying, come to Jesus talk.
Yeah, which is great.
We think is funny. And we're held accountable for what we said we would do in our pre-birth sacred vows to Spirit. We're held accountable. And that's all they ever ask about. They never ask about anything else. And so we wonder, what are we supposed to be learning in this era where everything is dying and we're able to observe it dying? Like we're observing the diminishment of the flocks and the forests and the life, and other scientists are observing it also, and yet nobody's acting as if that matters. And now politicians and corporations are saying, all right, well, we'll be net zero, meaning net carbon emissions of zero by 2040, but they don't have any plan to get there. There's no plan, so they're just saying stuff without any kind of plan. Maybe thinking they'll be dead by then, or they'll be retired by then, or they'll have moved into another department, or it'll be somebody else's responsibility.
I won't be the one in the seat when the bad thing happens.
And ClementV was the one in the seat when the bad thing happened.
That's what they're talking about.
And bad things are coming our way as a collective, as a species, and as a life form in this dimension, planet Combo Pack. Bad things are coming our way. For all of us, like for many of us, it's already right front and center.
Yeah.
And now, what are we supposed to be learning from this? And maybe as an individual, what are we supposed to be learning from this? There's some birds gathering. There's some hawks and other birds.
Mockingbirds.
Or jays. It's hard to tell. They sound like jays. That's a jay. Many jays. Now one of them just dive-bombed the hawk. The hawk might be too close to their nest. And they might be objecting.
They are really objecting.
Yeah. They're dive-bombing that hawk. Get away. That's what they're saying.
1, 2, 3, 4 of them.
At least, and here comes another one. I don't know what we're supposed to be learning from this. And this hawk might literally be saying, look, I'm just here to eat my lunch. Chill out, right? It's like, I'm not here to bother you. I'm here to eat my lunch.
It's a sturdy branch.
It's interesting. What are we supposed to learn from this?
Probably in terms of how this moment is going to end up being allocated karmically, at least at the end of the hawk's life, is about, well, what was the hawk actually intending to do when he showed up in this tree? Is he pretending to just be here to eat his lunch so that he can rob the nest, or is he actually here to eat his lunch?
I don't think he's actually there to eat his lunch.
I don't think so.
I think he would have moved on if he was actually there to eat his lunch. I think he's pretending. I'm not up to anything. Let everybody else go away and let it be just the mama left, and then I'll get her baby. Sure enough, everybody else will lose interest. They're talking about this other dreamer that seems to be possibly of a different species, like attempting to establish interspecies communication.
That's right.
And is taking risks to do that.
And there's this part toward the end of the dream when the dreamer is trying to make his way home, and he's crossing a very long bridge, and he has the awareness that this is a drawbridge that sometimes really suddenly goes up and down. You can get thrown off of this drawbridge.
There's danger.
I think probably the bridge is astral currents that take you from one dimension to another dimension.
Possibly.
Yeah.
He's taking a lot of risks, trying to establish interspecies and possibly also interdimensional communication. I don't think it's going to succeed.
No.
In accomplishing anything. Like, yes, he did have that interaction with other species, but I don't think they're planning to change their plans because of that meeting. They didn't say, oh, eureka.
Yeah.
I need to change things about how I'm living.
No.
They just thought they had a cool interaction with a different species.
That's
maybe.
right. That's right. We keep asking about what it is we're supposed to be learning.
Right.
And what keeps coming up over here was a healing session with a client, and he gave us permission to work through this, where the client has very recently moved to the United States from Germany. And it had always been in the soul plan that he was going to move to the United States from Germany. The details are kind of fuzzy, but we're going to get you there. And then he made it maybe a third of the way across the Atlantic, and his guardian angels lost the grip on where he was. And then they stayed kind of in that area where they lost him because they didn't want to lose him further. Meanwhile, he's still traveling to the States. By the time he made it to the States, parts of his own soul had noticed, we're without angels. We don't have, they're not with us. And those pieces of the soul broke off the main soul to go find the angels, which was a good idea, except
now
in the
how are they
astral
going
currents,
to
right? Now we have missing angels, we have missing pieces of the soul, and the life's body, it's starting to move out of harmony. His legs aren't working in rhythm with each other, because he's missing these big parts of him that went to find divinity.
Soul fragment.
Yep.
What's the message? What are we supposed to learn? Well, it's just total system breakdown. And now we see it happening, and we see it happening in many dimensions. It's easily observable in ground zero planet Earth, although humans tend to deny it and continue to phrase it as, well, if that thing that you think is happening.
That's it.
Rather than saying, well, since this thing is happening, let's deal with it.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to learn from this? Do you hear anything? What are we supposed to learn from this?
Has to do with Pope Clement V.
Well, Pope Clement V really, he seems to be trying to tell presences who work in religious traditions that they need to step it up and deal with this inconvenient reality and tell people this is God's planet, this is not humanity's planet, and God is unhappy with how humanity is treating the planet, destroying all life on Earth. This is God's planet, not humanity's planet. And it's the purpose of the pulpit to say things like that, and they aren't saying it because they're thinking about money, I guess.
Yeah.
And wanting a big congregation.
Yeah.
Maybe, and waiting for other people who have pulpits to start saying it so that it becomes cool to say it rather than just saying it. We've been saying it. I'm not sure who just said that, but somebody said it.
Yeah, somebody said it, who hadn't been talking much.
Right. It's a small voice.
Very
We've been
small.
saying it.
Meanwhile, that hawk is still on that branch, and I don't see any of the...
No, everybody else has left,
Jays.
but the hawk is still there. And now the hawk
there
just
he goes.
flew
He just took off.
and landed on another nearby branch. And what matters is what is supposed to happen. Is the hawk supposed to eat one of those babies, right? We don't know. Hawks, they're carnivorous. They have to eat something. What are they supposed to eat?
And things are always more interconnected than we think, and for all we know, that hawk is supposed to eat one of those babies so the other baby in the nest sees the eating happen and has that formative experience.
Or has enough food to get through the winter.
Right.
There might not be 2 babies worth of food coming to the nest, but there's enough for one, so it's better for one to be sacrificed. Like, who knows? We don't know what the soul plan is. And everything used to have a plan. The Talmud says every blade of grass has an angel bending over it, whispering, grow.
That's right.
And that's how it's supposed to be, but now that systems are breaking down.
We've got rafts of angels on the Atlantic.
Yes. Looking toward Europe
Mm-hmm.
when their charge is behind them in the New World. And now what?
What someone upstairs keeps circling around to in this conversation about system breakdown and how a lot of the various interconnecting interdimensional systems and intradimensional systems have ceased to work is he's talking about the law of attraction and how the law of attraction still actually does work.
It works.
And he's calling it something like a simple machine.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying it does still work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's somehow tied in with the Pope Clement's message. It's somehow tied in with the pieces of the soul who went to find their angels.
Well, Malaya was very interested in what happened with soul fragments, and she found that they clumped by vibration and then fell down, mostly down, because mostly they were not in a good place, and they attracted other presences who were not in good places.
Mm-hmm.
Looked like the abysses of hell.
That's right. Oh, you know what's really funny is Dante Alighieri, who wrote the really famous epic poem about hell, did not like Pope Clement V and said mean things about him.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it matters which one of them was telling the truth, you know?
The closer to the truth, or who believes themselves to be saying the truth.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we could inadvertently be passing on untruths, believing them to be true.
Totally.
What now? To create worlds that work in all dimensions for all categories of sentience, since that's what our soul contracts commit us to doing, and knowing that that's going to take a divine miracle. What now? To inspire a divine miracle, to create worlds that work in all dimensions for all categories of sentience, since that's what our soul contracts commit us to doing, and knowing that without a plan nothing's going to happen that's good. Then what now? To inspire a divine miracle, to create a divine plan, a plan based in reality with 6 months dependable levels of backup, because that's what guardian angels need to be able to do their jobs. That's the minimum. To just create a divine plan based in reality with 6 months dependable levels of backup, to create worlds that work in all dimensions for all categories of sentience, since that's what our soul contract commits us to doing, and to do that no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. What now?